Hi there. Would you like to hear a story? So, this is one of my favorite stories, and it begins with the tale of two young men, my brother and I, ages, let's see, I was 16 and he was 19 at the time. And this is the year 1997, so I want you to jump into your Wayback Machines. So this is many years ago, and almost 30 years, it's crazy. And I was in Europe with my brother for the first time, and we had been traveling through Europe, and we got down to Geneva, where we met up with a relative of ours. But from across Lake Geneva, in Geneva, Switzerland, off in the distance you can see Le Mont Blanc Massif, the Mont Blanc mountain range, the massive mountain range that is Mont Blanc. And my brother got inspired. He decided that we should climb this mountain. Well, we wanted to start off by exploring a little bit, so we hopped on a train station out of Geneva, and there are these little narrow gauge tracks, and they're kind of like these trains are kind of like a roller coaster where they have a center track where the train can like lock on and like up the hill, and they're these cool old red trains. I'll show you pictures here. And you get on this train and you go up these beautiful alpine valleys. I mean, it's just stunningly beautiful on your way to Chamonix, France, which is a very cool climbing community. Now, fast forwarding through many details, we eventually arrive several days later, like 5 days later, in actual Chamonix, France. And we go up to, and I was still on the fence about climbing Mont Blanc, but we go up to a Guy du Midi, the Middle Needle. It's this famous cable car that goes way up the mountain. And from there you can have amazing views. You can sit there and have lunch. Or, for the more intrepid, the start of the climb, which begins out this ice cave. There's this like ice cave tunnel that you walk out. And we went up to a Guy du Midi on like day one, and I was still on the fence. But after going to a Guy du Midi, my brother's exuberance overcame me, and I too was inspired to climb this beautiful mountain of Mont Blanc. And as you can see from these images, when you look at Mont Blanc from a Guy du Midi, it looks far away, but it doesn't look that far away because foreshortening, and the problem is that you don't just hike to the summit. You start off down this ridge, down into the Col de Maudit, and you hike down, and then you hike up a ridge, and then you hike down, and then you hike around, and then you go up to Mont Maudit, which is like this little steep section, this little narrow chute, and then you hike down again, and then you finally make your way to the summit. So, in our grand preparation. Now, in fairness to us, my brother and I, we were in good shape. We had been to Colorado earlier that summer in early June, and we had actually summited Mount Evans, or Mount Elbert, I forget the name. I think it was Mount Evans, but anyway, it's like one of the highest mountains in the Rockies, like 14,400 feet. And we hiked another 14er that summer too, so we were pretty acclimatized, and we were in pretty good shape, all things considered. So we were fit. Woefully unprepared, gear-wise. I was wearing canvas-sided combat boots. My brother was wearing like normal, like canvas-sided hiking shoes. We had blue jeans, which is known as a death cloth in the mountains because if it gets wet, it won't dry, it'll freeze you. I was wearing a green members-only jacket. I am looking high and low for these photographs. They're buried in some drawer somewhere. I've been looking for it the last hour. And I was wearing regular sunglasses, and I'm not kidding you, leather gardening gloves. I'm not kidding, okay? This is literally what we climbed this mountain with. And we go down into the climbing shop that evening after going to Guide Midi to buy some supplies, we knew we were going to need crampons and ice axes. Now, for those that don't know, let me show you what crampons are. Crampons are a metal tooth-like thing that you put on the bottom of your boot. And in fact, I believe these were the actual crampons that I bought in Chamonix. So these are old crampons. Let me show you what a crampon looks like. It's kind of scary. So crampons look like this, okay? They go onto your boot, and you can see they have these teeth that stick out the bottom of them, okay? And it goes on your boot like this. If you have a shoe, you put this onto your boot to the front, and you get your heel onto the back, and they clip onto your boots like this. And so now you have these really rugged spikes on the bottom of your feet. But the amazing thing about them is they literally let you walk on ice. Crampons are incredibly useful, and you can see they have these toe points in the front so you can kind of kick in to ice. Very handy, but they're heavy. They make your feet heavy, so, hiking is a little harder, of course, but certainly necessary. And we knew we were going to need ice axes. Ice axe, I have several examples. I have several examples of ice axes. This is a classic ice axe, Charlet Moser. It's about 3 feet long, and you can use this one's a little heavier. This one's a little lighter by Gravel. But this is an ice axe, okay? Has a pick side here. Okay, your pick side, and it has an adze side, so this is for chopping into snow, so you can chop and make steps or make a snow cave if you had to, with your adze. And then you have the sharp point, which is like more. Now, a more technical ice axe, by the way, I don't have the ice axe we actually bought. My brother might have it. It was kind of a cheap, and it was called like Wolf Pup. It was kind of like purplish fiberglass looking thing. But it was very similar to those ice axes I just showed you, very similar. It's not as nice. So this is a more like technical ice axe tool, okay? See, it has like a little bit of a bent handle. So this tool is for like climbing like steep, like ice. And you can see like the pick is very sharp, and it's much more aggressive, and it's made for like and this one has a hammer on the back, so the hammer is used for hammering in ice screws or pitons, things like that. And yeah, so ice axes and crampons. We also needed to get something called gaiters. Gaiters go over the bottom of your pants to keep your pants from getting wet. My brother opted not to get gaiters. So fast forwarding. We have our backpacks, we have our crampons, we have our ice axes, we have our gaiters, we have our blue jeans, our members-only jackets, our stocking caps, our sunglasses, my leather gardening gloves, and we got a couple sandwiches, some ham and cheese sandwiches. That's about all we know how to say in French. Je voudrais un sandwich avec fromage et jambon, s'il vous plaît. Ham and cheese sandwich. So we got a couple ham and cheese sandwiches, water, threw those into our backpack, and just like two crazy kids, we were off. So we take the Guide Midi up to the téléphérique, as it's called, the cable car, the téléphérique, up to Guide Midi, the middle needle, and with our ice axes in hand, we boldly set off to climb Mont Blanc. Now, it was a little late in the day. I don't think we got started. By the time we actually got up to Guide Midi, it was probably like 10 a.m., which is super late. You really want to start the climb at like 6 a.m. And we probably didn't start the actual climb until like 10:30 a.m. Now, as you can see from these photographs, there's an ice tunnel you hike out of, and a steep trail that winds down off of Guide Midi into this couloir. And I remember, I'll show you guys, I was behind my brother, no rope. And my brother is in front, and he plants his ice axe. and he takes a step, and I watched his leg. If you can see my leg, he takes a step like this. Shaky leg. And then he takes another step. Shaky leg. So he literally has got like the shakes from the get-go. You know, like, oh dear. So we start hiking down this very narrow, steep trail, and it's this huge drop-off down to the left and down to the right. It's this huge, bigger drop, not as big a drop-off as the left, but a big drop-off down into the coal. And so down, we head down this ridge, and we get down to the coal, and we look back up the ridge, and we're like, damn, that was pretty wild. That was really cool, but we were fine. There were other hikers out on the mountain with us that day. The other climbers, everybody's decked out in their North Face and their mountain hardware and all their fancy climbing gear. And here's my young brother and me, two teenage boys dressed in blue jeans and not appropriate gear at all. But we were making good time. We were, like I said, we were in shape. We were strong. We were hiking fast. And after you get down to the cirque, as you can see here on this image, there's a steep face, and you kind of traversed across the image. Now, I think the image that you see there is like in the wintertime, so it wasn't that snowy when we actually did it, and there was an actual trail. You could see a switchback trail that went up to the top of the first ridge. So we survived the first leg, and we're like, all right, so far so good. And we intrepidly truck up the next leg to the next ridge. And we get up there, we're making good time. I think it's probably around like noon, 12:30, when we get to this first ridge. We decide to stop, have some water, take a rest, have some of our sandwiches. And we looked at each other and we're like, this is awesome. This is like, we're doing great. Let's rock this thing. So the next leg of the journey, though, is when things started to get really interesting. So like I said, you start off by going down from Magi to Midi and around this bowl into this cirque. Then you hike up the hill, up the ridge. So you probably come down 500 feet, up 1,000 feet. And then we had lunch. And then you hike down again. We're like, dude, we just lost all this elevation. This is annoying. So down we go again off the backside of the ridge. And we're heading around the col, this new col, up to a point called Mont Blanc, which is the crux. It's about 50 feet at 50 degrees. So this is flat. 45 degrees is like this, right? Half of 90 degrees. So 50 degrees is like this. Okay, so it's, imagine hiking up 50-degree snow. It's steep. So we're hiking along this trail, and as you can see here on the image, you can see how there's like what's called a bergschrund, where it's like there's a glacier and there's like a little lip, like a lip of snow. And honestly, we were making very good time. Had the next thing not happened, it would have been a much easier journey, but as was the case, there was a backup of hikers, because there's some climbers coming down the Mont Blanc step, other climbers going up the Mont Blanc step, and so there's this big bottleneck. And so we're sitting there underneath this kind of overhang of snow in the shade, which is not good. We're starting to get cold, and after like 20 or 30 minutes, one of the guys in the front yells back, "Avalanche! Avalanche!" And we're like, oh crap. And we duck under this bergschrund, this little lip of snow, and all this snow and ice goes down I'm facing Mont Blanc, it's off to my right hand side. It goes like over my right shoulder and down the hill. Now, this was not a massive avalanche, but it was certainly sobering. So, and this happened twice. So we're sitting there in the shade, in the cold, waiting to try to get up towards our turn to do the Mont Blanc step. And we must have been there like at least an hour, maybe longer, maybe an hour and a half. It was a long time to wait. And now we're getting cold, and the afternoon is waning. And we finally make it to our place in the front of the line. And we start doing the step. And the way you do that, you take your ice axe. You take your ice axe like this, and you use the back of it, not the front of it. You don't want to go like this. It's like loose snow. So you take the full length of the shaft, you take your ice axe and you plunge it into the snow, and then you pull yourself up, and then you get your hands situated, and you take your ice axe again, and you plunge this all the way into the snow, like as deep as you can into the snow. Then you pull up on that. We get over the ridge, and we're like, hallelujah, the summit is near. This is where Mont Blanc fools you. So we get up the step, and once again, you have to hike back down. So you've gained a bunch of more elevation, only to lose elevation once again. Back down off the Mont Maudit into the final col, the final cirque, and then in front of us is the Mont Blanc summit. Now, it's still quite a ways away at this point. And after Mont Maudit, I was getting very tired. I was cold. I was tired. I was just starting to feel really sorry for myself. And the wind is whipping my eyes, and they're stinging, and my eyes are watering. And it actually would have been a great time to have like ski goggles, but all I had were little sunglasses. And I'm sitting there, we're walking along this slope, and it's probably like 35 degrees, okay? And you're walking along the slope, like so, step, but you take your ice axe, so here's the slope, okay? You take your ice axe, and you plant it, you take a step, and then you take your ice axe, and you plant it, and you take a step, and you plant it, and you take a step. That way, you always have something is securing you to the mountain, right? As I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself, and I started to cry a little bit. I was like, oh, I'm tired. I'm over this. I'm tired. And I'm feeling sorry for myself. As I take a step, something happened. As I'm walking along, I am doing my step. I have, like, let's say, you're beneath me, and the slope is like this, okay? So I'm walking along a slope like this, heading this direction. And as I walk, I clip my crampons. These things, they go on the boot, okay? The bottom of my shoes. They stick out a little bit on the sides. And I'm on a trail that's about the width of 2 boots wide. And as I take a step, my crampons clip. My crampons click each other like this. And I trip. And I start to fall. I lose my balance. And I take a stumble. Now, if I had fallen, I eventually would have stopped, I think. I don't know. It was very steep, and it was very icy. And now there's something called self-arrest, and that's where you take an ice axe, like this. And if you're falling down a steep snow face, what you do, which I learned later, after the fact, you take your ice axe like this in your hand, okay? Take your ice, so the adze is away from your face, and you lay on your ice axe and you press this into the snow, this hook into the snow, and you just drag this through the snow and ice, and it will stop you. It's called self-arrest with an ice axe. Now, I later learned how to do this. However, at the time, I really didn't know how to do that. I trip. I had planted my ice axe enough in my left hand that I caught myself. Okay, I caught myself from fully falling off this mountain. And that, my friends, was a very sobering experience. I remember thinking to myself, Jeremiah, clean it up. You're a long ways from anywhere. Nobody can really help you. Your brother's about 100 yards ahead of you, hiking faster than you are. You need to suck it up, Buttercup. Get it together. or you could easily seriously hurt yourself or possibly die on this mountain. But you need to figure it out right now. You need to stop feeling sorry for yourself. You need to buck up, kid. And after that moment, I stopped crying and I just accepted my position that I was in the middle of a very long, difficult climb, much harder, much more technical than I was prepared for. But I was going to make it. I was going to make it. Damn it. I was going to do this thing. So, I cleaned myself up, I shook it off, and I kept hiking. Across the cirque, across the wind-blown ice and snow. My brother, he never saw it happen. He was ahead of me, like I said, 50 yards or so, 100 yards. He was quite a ways ahead of me. He never saw the whole thing happen. Maybe that was better, I don't know. But it was definitely terrifying to me. And it really, it was a wake-up call for the severity of our situation. And so we hike across the cirque. We get to the actual summit push. And again, it's a zigzag. The final summit push isn't that difficult. But it's just because it's kind of like this big dome-looking thing. And you hike up, and you hike up, and you hike up. And finally, we're at the summit of Mont Blanc. Finally, we get up to the summit. And the summit is not what it looks like from the ground. From the ground, it looks very kind of like roundish and bulbous. When you get up there, the back side, the Italian side, is really steep, and it like drops straight down. It's wild. So we get up to the summit. We snap a few photographs. We both broke down and cried. We were just like, my God, what an expenditure of effort. We both cried on the summit. By now, it's probably like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The shadows are getting long. It's the summertime, but still, shadows are getting long. And we're going like, what are we gonna do? So, also while we're getting right up to the summit, this helicopter came in, like out of nowhere. This helicopter comes in, like doesn't land on the summit, but kind of like did a loop around the summit, and we're just like, that's cheating. That's not the same thing. You are cheating in your helicopter. You are cheating. But they didn't land. Luckily, they just did a little loop-de-loop and went off. And so we started hiking down to get off the summit, get out of the wind. We started hiking off the back of the summit. And there's this knife-edge ridge that you hike down off the back of the summit. Remember I told you in the beginning of the trip, there was this steep thing that you come out of the Gita Midi, and my brother's leg was like shaking as he took a step. Now, we both were walking down this knife edge, and it was like a 3,000-foot drop on our left and like this huge drop to our right, and we're like, wow, this is amazing. Exposure therapy in the extreme, right? So we hike off the back of the back of the summit, and there's a trail that we're following. Clearly people have been here before, so we're like, well, that's a good sign. So we hike off the back of the summit, and we had to regroup and figure out what were we going to do. We didn't have the energy to hike it all the way back to Agita Midi through Mont Maudit again, the passage and all that. We're like, no way. There's just no way. So what are our options? Well, we had a little money on us, maybe like a couple $100 in cash. And we're like, well, we could pay somebody to let us sleep in their tent with them because there were hikers back in the coal. And we can pay somebody, or my brother's like, there are huts. Now, we had heard of these alpine huts. We'd never stayed in one before. We'd heard of these alpine huts, these refugee places. And we look, my brother brought a nice big topo map, okay, like 2 feet, 3 feet wide, but 2 feet tall, big topo map. And we look at this topo map, and we see there's a hut not too far away. It's clearly marked on the topo map, and in fact, when we looked down the mountain, we're like, there's a hut down there. I'm like, oh my God, okay. So we walk down to that hut. Turns turns out, however, that hut was closed. It's only for emergencies only, and the conditions were not warranting an emergency. So that hut was locked up. And we're like, crap. But the trail did continue on down through the glacier, through the back of the mountain. And we're like, well, there's a trail. Let's take this trail on down. So we start hiking down the trail. And you can see like the pillows of glacier through the snow. It looked like these like gentle bubble rifts, like little ridges, but it looks all powdery and like very docile. Little did we know that was actually very dangerous. Probably ignorance is bliss at this point. So we start hiking down this trail. And like I said, it's getting late afternoon. Now it's maybe like pushing 4:35 p.m., okay? And here's the problem. As the day goes longer, those snow bridges crossing all those crevasses have been in the sun. They've been melting all afternoon, and they are the weakest right as we were heading down into the glacier. So my brother's in the lead. Once again, he's a faster hiker. He's about 20, 50 yards in front of me. And we're following the trail. And my brother gets to what looks like a crevasse and gets past it. Great. I get there. It doesn't even look like a crevasse. It just looks like a pillowy indent in the snow. And we get over that. And down we go. We get to this nether. You can see them. You can see the crevasses on the edge of your periphery. But like the snow, it just looked powdery and soft. They were filled in. And so my brother's crossing this crevasse. And all of a sudden, thunk, he sinks up to his crotch. And he puts his arms out and kind of catches himself in the snow. And he's like, Maya, careful. And I'm like, what the hell? My brother's like up to his waist, And I'm like, in snow. No. His foot had broken through the snow bridge and was dangling in thin air over a crevasse. Now, luckily for us, the snow bridge didn't break. He gets himself out. He climbs his way out. Oh, by the way, because my brother did not elect to bring gaiters to wrap up his pants, his blue jeans were shredded on the bottom from his crampons. So the bottom of his blue jeans looked like ribbon shreds from his crampons scraping his jeans as we hiked. Wear crampons, kids. Wear gaiters, kids. So anyway, he climbs out of the snow, and we're like, holy crap, that was close. And so I get up to the snow bridge, and we put out hands, and he's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, jump, and we get across. But now we start to realize the real danger that we're in. And we're like, we gotta be really careful here, dude. So when we approach these little indentations in the snow, from then on, we were incredibly careful. Hands out, but we didn't have any rope with us. But we were just carefully crossing these delicate snow bridges. And we knew that there was in the distance somewhere an alpine hut, a refuge, and this one was called Grand Moulet. Looks like mullet, M-U-L-E-T. Grand Moulet Refuge. And down we go, and eventually we see this. This is the Grand Moulet hut. And we didn't know it was there like this, but when we saw it, we were just we could hear hallelujah. I mean, this is just such epic relief. We climb up to the front door. As you can see, it's no joke to get to the front door. The reason these alpine huts are on these spires of rock like this is so that they don't get avalanched. They have to be above the avalanche danger. Scramble up to the hut, and it was mind-blowing. We meet the hut guardian, and it was $20 each, or something like that. And that included a bed and a meal. And we were just like, oh my God. Now, there's this old Swiss couple that we had passed on the summit push hours and hours ago. Like I said, we were fast hikers. We'd passed them and waved. And after we'd been at the hut for, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, or an hour, this very nice older Swiss couple hikes up and they hike in. And we start talking with them. They're really, really nice. And it was funny, like they were shockingly like nonchalant about the whole Mont Blanc thing, because they had climbed many alpine peaks before and they knew this hut was here, and they're just like, yep, we're just doing a hut tour. And but they asked us, they said, so you boys, do you have any rope with you? And we're like, no. And they're like, how about this? How about tomorrow morning you boys rope up with us? I mean, after all, 4 is better than 2. If one person falls, 3 people is way easier to catch one person than, one person trying to catch one person. So we thanked them profusely. I think offered to pay for something, and they were like, but they refused. Like, no, this is just much safer. So after a very delightful meal and some delicious tea, we slept on some bunk beds with some wool blankets, and we're just so grateful. So we get up the next morning, and we met another friend, so there were now 5 of us. And the 5 of us roped up together from the Grand Moulin Refuge. The 5 of us roped up, and this part down here is like the really blocky, glacial, like the big pillars of ice, and it looks really, really scary looking. It was kind of like hiking up like Mount Everest, like the Khumbu icefall. Not quite that extreme, but for us it was like a mini Khumbu icefall. And like we're like jumping down these ice and the glaciers, and it's like crazy. The irony is that section of the climb was actually way safer than the previous evening that my brother and I had done coming down the soft snow. The soft snow covering the crevasses is way more dangerous than the exposed ice down below, which, while looking scary, is actually not that dangerous. I mean, you can see what's happening. It's kind of like an emperor scorpion versus like a little woodbark scorpion. Like the emperor scorpion looks terrifying. It's big. It can fit in your hand. It's got the big pinchers and the big black tail. And emperor scorpions look really scary, but they're really docile. They're really tame. They're very mild manners. It's like the little ones that you have to really watch out for. And it's kind of like that. So we had been through the dangerous part, almost fallen. My brother did kind of fall into a crevasse, not all the way, but a little bit. But the bottom part, the safer part, we were fully roped up for. But regardless, we were incredibly grateful to rope up with this amazing couple. And after, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours of hiking, we got to like the middle station of the teleferique that goes to Agita-Midi. There's like, it goes from the valley to like a middle station, and then the middle station all the way up to Agita-Midi. And we got to that middle station with this massive sigh. We couldn't believe it. We gave our new Swiss friends a hug and thanked them profusely for helping these 2 dumb American kids get safely off the mountain. And we got in the car. We had a return ticket, from Agita-Midi from the day before. So we used our return ticket. And we headed back down to Chamonix. And we both remember getting off the cable car, the teleferique, and looking up at Mont Blanc and just being like surreal. Like we had just been up there. Like we had just climbed this insane mountain with like no skills. It was so stupid. It was so stupid. But that's the thing about life, You go on these crazy adventures, and especially in your youth, and you hope you make it. You know, in our case, of course, we did, and I think we celebrated that evening with a big fondue dinner. Just gorged ourselves on cheese. It was magical. And then we were off to experience the rest of our vacation. But that was a wild trip. So, thank you very much for coming with me on this little journey. Stay safe out there, you know. Dare to go on adventure, but please be smarter than my brother and I were, and do a little prep before you decide to head off into the mountains, okay? Okay. Sweet dreams, everyone.